Hello everybody and a very warm welcome back to the channel today. As promised, we're diving into the new iniBuilds A300 Tutorial Series here on the channel. Highly requested by quite a few people, and it will go hopefully quite nicely in conjunction with those checklists that I've created and put onto flightsim.to for you all to use and enjoy. And we're going to go through one of my favourite typical routes for our tutorial series on various aircraft. A little hop from Manchester down to London Heathrow in this wonderful aircraft. And we'll be going through various features throughout a couple of episodes, running through from cold and dark, as we are here at stand 6, all the way through to engine cut-off on stand at Heathrow on the other side. So hit like, hit subscribe, don't forget that notification bell, and share your thoughts and any tips and tricks as always down in the comments below. So first things first, all the aircraft systems are switched off. We're boarding the aeroplane fresh via stairs here today, and this rather horrible live weather at Manchester as we record. And we're going to make our way into the flight deck for the very first time in our new shiny Osprey Airways Retrojet as well, which I hope those of you who fly for Osprey Airways are going to really enjoy. We've got various liveries coming forwards for this aircraft, painted by Tapsy. And as you can see, cold and dark. So all we have is the EFB. Now, if we just dive straight into the flight deck and take our seats, appreciate it's dark at the moment, but it's live weather and I only fly on live weather. We will begin with throttle calibration. So, depending on what hardware you have, you might have a reverse axis. If you do, you want to toggle yes, and then you want to set your calibrations based on your reverse axis as well. However, I don't. I've got the Honeycomb Bravo, therefore the answer to that question is no. To start your calibration, all you're going to do is press this button here, and then you'll see set idle position highlighted. So find idle on your throttles. For me it's set where it is at the moment, 0%, and we press set idle position like so. So we select that button there to say that's good, we'll set it. And then it moves over to toga. So we're going to move our throttle positions to toga and then click accordingly. Done. If somehow you manage to mess it up, just press that button there to reset your throttle calibrations. Next, if you have a Navigraph subscription, you can click the Navigraph tile and follow the steps to connect your Navigraph account into the EFB. It's one step basically. You scan the QR or put the code into their website to connect it all up, and then it will log you in and allow you to access the charts inside the EFB. Third bit is settings. Hoppy's coming soon. When that does get released, then you'll want to make sure that you put your Hoppy login into that field there, and it will give you ACARS. But for now, you want to go to SimBrief. Go to your account settings and find your username, and then pop your username into this little top left field underneath SimBrief. Hit enter. When it's done, or press that little down arrow, and that will commit in there, and then you can set everything up as you wish. So IRS align times, I like fast, so you still have to wait a little bit, but it's done in a couple of minutes. Rudder controls tiller, initially yes. We'll go through that a little later on as well, because there's something to bear in mind during takeoff. And then altimeter units, depending on where you are in the world and what you use. So for us, HPA, hectopascals in the UK, and we'll use that. If you're in the US, for example, you use inches of mercury, in which case you can just toggle it across. Same with pounds and kilograms. Press the little right arrow on the EFB to go to the next part of the EFB screen, and then you want to select your maintenance mode. So if you want to simulate the aircraft experiencing wear and tear the more you fly it in a normal, natural manner, then select realistic, and you'll know the one that's currently engaged on the top right of that box. So it's currently set to realistic, and I'm pretty sure that's how it is by default as well. If you want it to be a bit quicker, although I don't know why you would, then you would select fast, and then if you don't want it at all, you can press disabled. And you can just set it up as you wish. Currently in version 1.01, the interior sounds are quite lacking, so for that reason we've got the master sounds turned to maximum and the interior sounds turned to max as well as environment as well, just to give us a little bit of flight deck noise, bit of wind. So you can set it all up based on your own personal preference. If we press the cog on the very top right of the EFB, it will give you a couple of other options. So you can change your EFB brightness, and you can change your panel states accordingly as well. Then we're going to turn our attention to ground equipment. As you can see, because we're using GSX today and we've got those steps attached, doors 1 left, 2 left and 4 left are all open with stairs attached. Currently we don't have any chocks on the aircraft, but you can toggle all of this as you wish. Same with cabin lighting. The main thing on this screen is making sure that you at this point have toggle ground power unit on, so you have a GPU under the aeroplane ready to power the aircraft. And then we can look at my flight, and providing you've input your SimBrief username into the EFB in that settings page that we saw a moment ago, and you've generated a SimBrief flight plan for whatever flight you're about to commit to, we can press that import from SimBrief button, bam, there we go, and it will load it all in for us along with the METARs. You can see with live weather at the minute, the weather is really poor in the UK, incredibly low pressure passing over the country at the minute, certainly over Heathrow at the moment, towering cumulus, gusts of 29 knots from 200 degrees, so horrible crosswinds, low visibility and rain to look forward to as we head into London. Before we go any further with the EFB, we're now going to bring the systems alive on the aeroplane. So for that, we're just going to maneuver the camera and we're going to look at the overhead panel. And you can see external power has a veil next to it. So we're going to go ahead and press that and the aircraft comes to life. So battery 1, 2 and 3, pop those back to automatic. And galley shed is on at the moment, it's fine. After engine start we will turn the galley power on like so. But for now the more important stuff, nav 1 or ADRS 1 to nav, ADRS 2 to nav, ADRS 3 to nav. We can see on the left all the spoiler and speed brake hydraulic systems, pitch field rudder travel, slats, flaps, servos, all low pressure and faulting. That's fine. Hydraulic systems there, low pressure. That's all okay. We're going to pop the nav lights on to show that we've got power to the aeroplane down in the external lights section of the overhead panel, and we can pop the window heaters on as well. Currently probe heat can stay off as well, and then down here emergency exit lights onto arm. We can pop the standby compass light on if we wish, and we can see the green lines of the aircraft's overhead panel show you the flow of each bit, whether it be power or hydraulics or air going through the packs on the overhead panel. So currently none of the packs are on, and you can see pack 1 and pack 2 are faulting, and crossfeed for the bleed is on as well. When we get the APU on in a little while, we'll see the APU bleed come online, and that green line will then illuminate in this little box, and it will show APU bleed moving through that little box and then up to the crossfeed before making its way up to the pack valves up here. So it's a really good way of understanding the systems underneath the aeroplane and how they interact with various systems by looking at these green lines and looking at the flow of various elements of it. So if we turn the pumps on, that green line would move up and it would power engine 1 and APU, as would the inboard tanks and the center tanks, trim tanks and all that sort of stuff. So quite interesting to look at and bear in mind. On the left, just above the captain's heads, you've got the no smoking signs. Pop them on automatic, and after fueling we'll pop the seatbelt signs on. For now, we can make sure we've got all our lights set up accordingly. So down here we've got the twizzly dial underneath the rudder trim. That's going to allow us to set up some of our lights for the pedestal and the panel and the overhead lights. And then we've also got, just to the side of the FCU, the PFD brightness screen and the nav display contrast and brightness as well. So spend a little time just setting it up depending on the lighting conditions outside and how you want it set in the aeroplane as well. We clear the master caution just in case we get any others, and we can turn our attention now to the FMC. So align IRS, those 3 IRS switches we've just clicked, they're ready to align, but they're not yet going to start the align process because we need to give it a little bit of information first. Like a lot of other aeroplanes in the sim, we've got to initially tell the aeroplane where we think we are. So we are at Manchester, Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, and we're going to fly to London Heathrow, Echo Golf Lima Lima. So we'll hit that button, press return, and then align IRS becomes visible. We're going to press the 4th button down on the right hand side alongside align IRS, and because we've clicked it in the memos now, IRS in align. So they're going to work away and get all of that sorted out. In the meantime, press menu, ACARS, and with that SimBrief integration that we've been speaking about already, we can request SimBrief. Bingo! Alternate Bournemouth. And then we can just go ahead and put in other bits of data around the flight plan that it's installed or uploaded in. And we can go ahead and put in any data that is missing from our flight plan that it's just uploaded into the FMC. So, cost index of 15. Our cruise flight level for this sector is set to flight level 190, and we are flying the Osprey Airways scheduled service to London Heathrow. It's Osprey 101 Alpha for the flight ID. And we need to think about loads. Block fuel, 0 fuel weights, takeoff, gross weight, all that sort of thing. In the meantime though, while we're still waiting for the IRS to align, we're going to look at our routing. On the screens then for you folks is a client called New Sky, which is what we use at Osprey Airways to track all of our flights, and it has SimBrief integration within this, meaning we can display it in a nice format for you folks watching the tutorial. Cost index up here of 15, as we can see, average cruise winds, average ISA, all of this we should be familiar with from various other aeroplanes in the in the sim that we've been enjoying for the last couple of years. FinRes plus alternate is 4.036 or 4036. Which is basically just 4.0, 4.1 if you really want to round it up and be good. And a block fuel 9246. Initially though, we want to look at our routing. So, runway 23 right, SANBA on Romeo to SANBA, November 859 to Honolulu, and then the Honolulu 1 Hotel. Super simple route, and it all fits on the FMS, or the FMC, here on one page. So to import the rest of it, the SID and the star, we need to select EGCC, select SID, and the A300 wants you to filter by runway first and then work into the procedure. So we know we are going to depart on runway 23 right because of the weather. So we select that first, and then we can select our SID, our standard instrument departure, and it's that SANBA 1 Romeo departure, like so. And we can press insert. GPS primary, by the way, is popped up because the IRSs have finished aligning and the aeroplane now knows precisely where we are in the world. So we could just clear that memo. There's our departure. Up to SANBA. Clear that. And then we've got the routing through Yutuxa down to Honolulu and then Heathrow With the weather at Heathrow at the moment, we can select the star. We're going to select runway 27 right because that's what they're actually using in real life at Heathrow at the moment. And we're going to select Bovingdon. Now, how do we know that? Well, if we go to the charts now, which are suddenly on your screen, we can see the weather on the left-hand side of that Navigraph chart input. And here is the arrival. So the star that we're going to be doing later on, we'll go into it in more detail, but because this is a short route, we want to set this up now. We're going to go Honolulu, down to Tobid, then sop it at flight level 150 through the Westcott NDB, and then to Bovingdon, which is the transition into our arrival procedure at Heathrow. On the charts here at this airport particularly, if you look down on the stars, there is additional instructions for initial approach from Bovingdon. We need to pin that because it impacts what we do at Bovingdon prior to commencing the approach. Otherwise there's a big gap and we have to kind of know what we're doing at this point. Certainly useful on VATSIM. So Bovingdon 126 degrees down to central London over the Thames and then routing over the London Eye basically, turning round onto final approach at 3000 and then in. So we can commit to that. Bovingdon. Select the runway first, then the transition, then the star. Honolulu 1 Hotel. Insert. And again, we're just going to go through here and make sure that the nav data looks good. So SANBA is initial climb of 5000. Soppit, flight level 150 with the restriction there. Bovingdon at 70. And then final approach with the missed approach procedure 2. Okay, happy with that. So, turning our attention back to that EFB. Weight and balance. So we're going to now load the aircraft based on what we've done on SimBrief. Update from SimBrief. That tells us what we want to have based on our SimBrief flight plan. And now we apply load to aircraft. We're going to get a pop-up on the right hand side. There it is, fueling the aircraft, complete in 4 minutes 35. If we just press finish now, it will do it immediately for us, which is rather good. We're going to look at this data and we're going to work back to the init page, init B, and we're going to pop block fuel, 0 fuel weight by just selecting the buttons, and we should get a match here based on what we can see on the EFB. So block 9.2, 0 fuel weight 1173, gross weight for takeoff 126.1. If you want to change the taxi fuel for shorter taxis, we can press 0.2 and change that accordingly. What it will then do is recalculate the takeoff gross weight 126.3 to account for the lower taxi fuel usage, and that will then allow us to be a little bit more careful with our takeoff performance. And there's the 0 fuel weight centre of gravity 30.9 at the very bottom of the right hand side, and that all matches up pretty well. So we're going to press the little home button and then we're going to turn our attention to aircraft maintenance. Thinking about that modes that we selected earlier on, whether we have realistic or fast or off. If you select off, you don't need to worry about this. It's worth checking every now and again, just in case that setting gets toggled back for whatever reason and the APU is burning oil, or you're losing some hydraulic fluids, or the tyres need replacing. So you can just press through the maintenance schedule any of these buttons here to service the relevant parts of the aircraft that might need a bit of attention. And the maintenance panels section here allows you to open the engine cowlings and things and explore the internals of the aeroplane a little bit more as well. To performance then, hit that big sync button on the top of that left hand box and it's going to bring in things like your winds and everything else. We just need to make sure we select the correct runway. So 23 right at Manchester. And it's also synced in our weights, flap selection, which we can click to change as we wish. And then the modes of air conditioning and anti-icing as well, depending on whether they're on or off. We can hit calculate, making sure all the data is correct first. It's not. You may have noticed the surface is dry and it's clearly raining. So we'll click that button there on surface, conditions to wet. And now look at the difference between V1 rotate and V2 when we recalculate. There we go. While we're here and we're thinking about inputting our performance data, we're going to also set our altimeter accordingly. So you can either press the keybind of B, which a lot of people like to use, or you can turn your attention to your altimeter and you can set your QNH accordingly. Big rule here is high to low, down you go. We talk about it all the time, because if you go from standard pressure, which is QNH of 1013, to an area of very low pressure like we have at the UK currently, and we've already discussed, QNH of 978, look what happens to the altitude here, the pressure altitude. Look at that for a drop. A huge change in pressure altitude there, so you can find yourself very low quite quickly. While we're looking at this, we're then going to cage the standby horizon. So we'll pull that out and let it wiggle away. And you'll notice the flight control panel here for the autopilots are all blank. Now the IRSs have been aligned, what we can do is look up, pitch trim 1 and 2 goes on, yaw damper 1 and 2 both go on, and ATS both go on as well. And that then gives us power to the autopilot system. Press DH, set -5, do the same for the first officer's side. Make sure the first officer's instruments are the same as well. There is a setting in the EFB for you to link those if you wish. And while we're here, we're going to set our initial climb based upon what we have on the charts. So SANBA 1 Romeo departure, the runway 23 right at Manchester. It's initial climb to 5,000 feet. So we set 5,000 on the box, and don't forget the runway heading as well, which in this case is 231. Now let's put all of this performance data into the FMS. We need to look at what altitude we wish to reduce our thrust by. So a lot of aircraft, a lot of airports in the UK and a lot around the world, to be fair, have different noise abatement procedures. The basics are one of two options, either 1,000 feet above ground level or 1,500 feet above ground level. To keep it super simple, we'll just use 1,000 foot above ground level, which is 270 feet, 1,270, and we will pop that into the various altitude boxes like so. What that means is as we get to 1,270 feet on our pressure altimeter, with the local QNH tuned in, the nose is going to go down, pitch down slightly. The aeroplane is then going to try and accelerate from its initial climb speed of V2 plus 10 to its normal climb speeds based upon any of the other requirements of the SIDS that you might have, like speed restrictions, for example. So we're then going to now put in V1 rotate and the V2 speeds. V1 on the box is 152 and rotate is 153. V2 is 163 and it says there FCU, so that's because it's asking us to set it based upon the value here. So we're going to set 163, which is our V2. Then we're going to press the little up arrow to illuminate preset, and depending on the departure, You might have speed restrictions. If you do, you would set it as a preset. So for example, 180 knots, but we don't on this departure. So what we're going to do is set 250 because we have that speed restriction of 250 knots below 10,000 feet. So we've basically got two speeds pre-selected. We've got 163 as our V2 in the FCU, and we've also got preset and displayed 250. So speed, altitude, heading select and decision heights all set. What we can also do is match the landing elevation here just above the TRP to the closest possible match for the airport elevation, and we can select flex and set the flex to match that of the EFB, which is 63. Like so. So with that, we've got our flight plan input, we've done init A and init B. What we can also now look at is progress page. We're going to do this now as prep because it will allow us to focus on the arrival a little bit more, this short flight. We're going to look at descent forecast. So the airplane wants to know what winds it might experience prior to top of descent, and that will then give you an idea of what the descent forecast might be. So if you look at your OFP and you scroll further down, what you'll notice is this little wind information box which you can see and use. Effectively select whichever altitudes you think are relevant for your flight in the descent forecast box and input them accordingly. So we know top of descent is going to be at flight level 190, 239 at 48. So let's use that as an initial starting point, comparing the two here. So flight level 190 slash 239 48. So the format will look like that, and then we select the box that we want to put it in, which in this case is the first one at the top of the list, like so. And then we can look at flight level 150 in the descent, which is FL 150 / 248 / 41. So 248 degrees 41 knots at flight level 150. And then the flight level 100, 10,000 foot winds, FL 100 / 247 at 40. And the final box is Heathrow, which we can take from the OFP, but what I will do is show you via Navigraph, because you can press the little button there and it will show you the METAR 210 at 17. 210 at 17. That's your descent winds forecast complete, and that hides away in the progress page. So init A, init B, descent forecasts, because this is a super short flight. We've checked our speeds. We haven't done the approach speeds yet, we'll do that later, and we've checked all of our flight plan routes, and we are quite happy with all of that, so happy days. Couple bits of admin left. Frequencies. So at this point you want to make sure that you've set the frequencies you want for your controller you're going to speak to, and the next controller after that, depending on if you're using VATSIM or if you're flying offline, you don't need to worry about that particularly, and that you've set your transponder accordingly as well. So we're going to use 2000 for today because we're just going to fly offline as a bit of basic IFR traffic. If we have NDBs for the departure, you want to tune that in here. Make sure that the correct one is highlighted with a little green dot indicating which one is on. And if you have any VORs, you can tune them in as well. So we can pop the Pilot 2 to VOR if you want. For any VORs, you need to toggle the mode selector up here which says VOR Nav ILS. There's one for the captain and the first officer. 11355, and then you'd set your course, in which case we'll use runway heading of 231. But make sure you're back on nav for things like LNAV, VNAV departures and all that sort of thing. Make sure your throttles are on idle, speed brakes are stowed and not armed, and your flaps are shown 0-0. They agree there, and your landing gears are down 3 green, which you would see anyway, spawning in on the aeroplane. And that is everything for the pre-flight. In the next episode, we're going to dive into pushback, engine start, taxi and takeoff before hurtling through the climb into cruise, descent and then the approach into Heathrow. So I hope you're finding this series really useful. Naturally, it doesn't cover absolutely everything because it would be far too extensive if it did. It's designed to give you everything you need to know to handle this aircraft as confidently and as smoothly as possible as you learn your way through the jet. Hit like, subscribe, and of course share your comments, and join us for the next episode coming imminently. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.